Last question is from Baby Brazil. Maybe not the last question. We'll see how this goes. Hi, Glenn. Thanks for taking questions as usual. I've been reading Ed Snowden's book, Permanent Record, which, if you haven't read, I mean, I'm not just saying this because Snowden was my source and is my friend, but it's a great book. It's kind of his memoir about what led him to become, I think, clearly this century's most important and consequential whistleblower, engaging in behavior incredibly brave, like exceptionally unusually brave. What motivated him, what the thought process was, what he went through, what his views are. The question is, I'm struck by his outrage when he discovered the details of Stellar Wind. What are your thoughts since publishing his revelations about how the American consciousness has changed and adapted to a new reality where facial recognition software is everywhere? The core function of Stellar Wind continue in law, and companies like NSO Group and Palantir make surveillance of individuals much easier for governments around the world. Why are we not outraged still? You know, I've been talking about and reading about facial recognition software, just to pick up on one of those points, just to illustrate one point. For years, someone I know who's a journalist at the New York Times, she's married to Trevor Tim, who is executive director of Freedom of the Press Foundation that I co-founded. So I know her reasonably well. Wrote a book on facial recognition software that was actually quite good about the rapid, remarkable advances that this technology has already achieved that most people haven't really begun to appreciate, let alone the consequences of them. And I don't know when it was, probably like 9 months ago. You know, I've been traveling to the back and forth from the United States to the United States, you know, for 20 years or more, like with great frequency. And every time it's always the same. You know, you land in JFK or Miami or wherever, Houston, and you go through immigration, you take out your passport, you give your passport to the customs and an immigration official. He looks at your passport, compares the picture, maybe like scans your passport so information comes up about you that's digitally stored. And that's it. And for the last, obviously, I don't know how long, 10 years, every single person who enters the US, including US citizens, get photographed. And you get photographed whenever you travel internationally. So just constant photographs of your face going into government databases linked to every conceivable part of your government identity. And you know this. I mean, you know that's why they're taking your picture. And you can imagine very easily the kind of power this technology would provide. I mean, you walk on the street and the prevalence of drone technology and surveillance, let alone you don't even need street cameras anymore, will enable the government to pretty much identify every single person where they are at all times. But I remember, nonetheless, you have these views in the abstract and they alarm you in the abstract, but they don't really alarm you like on a visceral level because you're not really experiencing them yet. I guess 9 months ago, the first time I landed it was in the US, where I went to get my passport to the customs agent, and he made pretty clear he just didn't need it. And he just told me to look in the camera, and then I popped all my information, didn't touch my passport, and had all the information he needed. And there was actually some mark. I got like secondary screening. And, you know, I realized then that the ability to just immediately identify you with the tiniest camera, and not just identify who you are, but who knows how much other information is immediately connected to your face, is extremely potent. There was an article today in the Wall Street Journal about how Israel used its genocide and destruction of Gaza to test all these great advanced new weapons, including ones from Palantir. And I'm certain that one of the things they were doing, and I say I'm certain because when I worked with Jeremy Scahill on our very first story after we founded The Intercept, he came to Brazil to work with me because he had a source who had given him information. I was working with the Snowden archive, and we combined them to be able to report on how one of the ways the US government was selecting targets to kill in Afghanistan and Pakistan was through a kind of incipient artificial intelligence where it would analyze the metadata of every person a certain person was talking to. So if you were somebody who talked to people with many people with frequency who were deemed terrorists in this database, you'd get a very high point score. And then if you were exceeding a certain point score, you became a legitimate target to be killed. And you can imagine how quickly and easily error could happen. If you're a journalist, you might be talking to the Taliban all the time in reporting. If you're a government official, you might be talking to all kinds of people the US government dislikes, and you could compile a very high score that puts you on a kill list, and then a drone just comes by and blows up your house. Obviously, that's what the Israelis were doing a lot of, as well as new weapons that they were using to incinerate things. And the article was actually about how Europe, a lot of European countries who are making a big showing flamboyantly of condemning the Israelis and even making a point to say, we're not going to allow Israel to do this, or we're going to not have contact with Israel for this. Israel now, because of the 2-year experience that they had of testing weapons on the people of Gaza, now has a major export industry of advanced technology and defense. And the Europeans are very interested in buying it for themselves because they think they're going to have a war with Russia, and they no longer think the US is going to protect them. And so for all the talk about, Israel, we condemn Israel, and they're very much in bed with the Israelis, eager to acquire these weapons that have been proven on the battlefield to be effective. Proven meaning Israel was just experimenting in Gaza on the people, the Palestinian people, to prove what kind of weapons worked or didn't work in the battlefield. And a lot of it is artificial intelligence. That's why Palantir is so important. A lot of it is it's kind of trying to assign scores, but in a more sophisticated way, to who deserves to live and die based on just algorithms and predictability and machine learning. And then Palantir not only provides the evaluative software and the algorithmic analysis, but also the weapons that are then connected to it. So they're kind of like robotic, artificial intelligence driven drones that just can go around and suck up information. Then based on the information it sucks up, make a decision. I'm saying decision in quotes because it's really based on technology of mass surveillance and artificial intelligence to decide who lives and who dies. And so you can say, well, what about all the uproar? And there was a lot of uproar over the Snowden reporting. I mean, I was in the middle of it. I know. I mean, it was a very real consciousness transforming moment. It went on for 2 years. It was the top story in countless countries. And it led to legislative changes and diplomatic relations being severed or altered, to all kinds of laws in countries designed to build their own infrastructure to protect their technology. And mostly what it did is it changed the behavior of big tech. That's when they instituted end-to-end encryption. They had to demonstrate to the users that users could trust Facebook and Google because they were petrified that Germany or South Korea or Japanese company or Chinese company could say, hey, Facebook and Google are giving your data to the US government, use ours and we won't. And they would lose an entire generation of users. It was a big deal. They really had to respond to the Snowden reporting. That's when Telegram emerged. People for the first time were starting to understand how the internet, kind of like what I was talking about before, can be this massively transformative technology in positive ways, could also be a tool of unprecedented repression and control. And there was a lot of global concern about privacy and mass surveillance in the digital age. But one of the things that the US security state is very good at, that governments are very good at doing, is keeping people in fear. And if people are in fear, they're going to start thinking privacy is a luxury and safety and security are the most important things, and no longer care. Like, hey, let the government know everything about what I'm doing. I'm not a pedophile. I'm not a terrorist. Like, who cares? And when we did the Snowden reporting, Al-Qaeda was, it was like 12 years after 9/11 when we started. Al-Qaeda was kind of stale, didn't really get people that scared anymore. And so suddenly you had ISIS. And they were starting to try and even create like these offshoots of Al-Qaeda that were like way worse than Al-Qaeda, like the K group or Al-Qaeda Kherson. I forget the name, but they claimed that there were these offshoots that were way like more barbarian and savage and dangerous than OG Al-Qaeda 1.0. And then you went into Russiagate and the fear of Russia. And now you have the fear of Muslims, the Muslim takeover, Somalians. You just, as long as you keep giving people some enemy that they fear, like, no, you don't have to fear the government. You don't have to fear oligarchy. You don't have to fear like the World Bank or the IMF or Wall Street. Don't worry about them. You may not like them, but no, it's the Somalians in Minnesota who are the reason your lives are so difficult. It's it's ISIS, it's Russia, it's Iran. And we need to fight them. We need to be ready to fight them. It's Maduro. If you can't afford to start a family, if you can't buy a house, if you're drowning in debt, it's because of Maduro. Let us go take out Maduro and your life will be better. And they're very good at this. Propaganda is very, very effective. It's tested over. It's a science. It studies how our brains work and what the fear responses are, and it manipulates and exploits those. And as long as it can keep manipulating and exploiting that fear level, the fear level goes up, the authoritarianism goes up, and the demand for privacy or protections or civil liberties erodes. And if you look at the discourse in independent media, online, you will be amazed at how neurotic people are, like how paralyzed with fear they are. You know, like just that contrast that I showed you before of the video Randy Fine posted of like Muslims doing nothing but praying on the streets. I just watched people look at this video. It was 80 Muslim Americans in Brooklyn peacefully in early morning, getting on prayer mats and bowing to God for 2 minutes or however long it takes, practicing their religion, nothing else. And Randy Fine says, these are the barbarians at the gate. We have to stop them. We're like, oh my God. We kept trying to engage people and say, like, what is scary about this video? Like, what are you seeing here? And then when I posted that video of the Jews doing the same, the Orthodox Jewish people doing the same, they were like, the Jews don't want to kill me. The Muslims want to kill me. If you go to a Muslim community, they're going to kill you. It's just, and you look at these people who think they're so tough and strong, like Fox News and like Ben Shapiro or whoever convinced them that Muslims are their problem, not like the distribution of wealth, not the centralized control of money and power, not the military defense contractors, the banks or Silicon Valley or big tech. No, forget about that. It's these Somalians in Minnesota. Those are the people who are endangering you. And you're like, how does that work? And, we're tribalistic. The more you point out the differences, it's why people got mad at me when I posted those Orthodox Jews, because most Americans look at the gathering of those people and they say, yeah, those people don't look like us. So they look different too. You otherize people, you just point out that somehow they don't think like you, they're not rational. And then suddenly people are focused on that and they're frightened and scared. So if you come and say like, hey, you don't want the FBI to be able to spy on domestic activity or have mass surveillance, and the FBI or the NSA says, no, we're doing this to stop the Muslims, which is what they said during the whole Snowden reporting. Huge numbers of people could be like, you know what? I'm scared. I want the government to have this power. Just let them have this power. I'm not comfortable with it. I don't like the fact that they know everything I'm doing, but at the end of the day, like, what are they going to do to me? I let them just have a full dossier and everything I do in my life. No big deal. The Muslims are coming and we have to stop them. And for whatever, the Iranians or the Russians. That's why Democrats and liberals stopped caring about and complaining about the U.S. security state, because they got convinced that not the Somalis, but the Russians are the reason their lives are difficult and in danger. And so they wanted the CIA, and that's why they became national security state supporters, why they love Liz Cheney and Bill Kristol. And they recruited all these women from the CIA and the NSA and the Pentagon, and they became a national security party because they got scared by Russia, not by Muslims or Iran, but by Russia. It's the same exact thing. It doesn't matter. It's like an ad lib. You just fill in the blanks with whatever works on whatever groups of people you have to keep with high fear levels. And as long as they have high fear levels, they're not going to care about things like privacy or restricting the power of the U.S. surveillance state or Palantir or whatever. These seems like more abstract concerns than like Putin, who's going to come and subvert your election, or Muslims who are going to come and rape your daughters. There's no rationality to it. Like, wait, how many Muslims are actually doing that? How much crime in the United States is attributable to the Somalis in Minnesota? Oh, they just got like 60 of them, a few dozen just got caught stealing. How much stealing is being done by other groups? It's kind of like the same way you put fear about people with gay couples, like, oh, they're going to rape their kids or they're going to rape your kids. And it's like, how many, if you go to Google and I right now tweet pastor arrested or Christian arrested or married couple arrested for molesting kids in their foster care or who they adopt, how many stories are going to find? hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. But you can keep people focused on this one particular threat, and they're petrified. And like a lot of people on the right like to think of themselves as these like tough, swaggering, like Valentina, whatever her name is, Lopez. What is it, Valentina? I blocked it out. Gomez. She's like, let me tell you something, Pierce. I'm not scared of the groomers and the Muslims, the dirty Muslims. And, this is, and it sounds like it's kind of like a caricature, like camp version of some like woman being super, but it's all based on fear. It's like, oh my God, the Muslims are coming to rape us and they're coming to kill us. And it's just putting people in like a state of permanent neuroses. And that is a big part of how people give up power. It's why it's been so potent to convince Jews that they're endangered in the United States, that there's an anti-Semitism crisis, that Jews go out to school and they get beaten up, or they walk on the street and they get attacked. This is all part of the fear mongering of what keeps people uncomfortable with government centralized power like surveillance and the like, but willing to accept it if it means that they can stay safe.
Thanks for watching this clip from System Update, our live show that airs every Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern exclusively on Rumble. You can catch the full nightly shows live or view the backlog of episodes for free on our Rumble page. You can also find full episodes the morning after they air across all major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Apple. All the information you need is linked below. We hope to see you there.